Okay. Now what do we got? Yep. Ooh. That's different. Welcome back to Freedom One Garage. You probably just got done watching a video on sealing up the front side and the case and the torque converters and all that stuff, the business, input side of the Dynaflow out of our 58 Buick Special. Not our 58 Buick Special, but our customer's 58 Buick Special. Better be clear there. That part's done. We're moving on to the famous for all the wrong reasons torque ball. This is the output end of the transmission. These leak. There's no other way to put it. There's a seal between here and the torque tube that's probably still in the car, and that's fine. But we're going to break this down and take it apart, and I'll show you. It's really kind of an odd guy here. And then you have the enclosed drive shaft that would go back to the rear end. And this is a 58. By now, most of the manufacturers figured out, hey, let's just put a seal on the back of the transmission and have exposed drive shafts. But Buick clung on to this idea for a few more years yet. And yeah, nobody likes them. They leak. It's not a matter of whether or not the torque ball in your Dynaflow, whether it's a Buick Riviera Special, LeSabre, whatever, it's not a matter of whether or not it's going to leak. It's a matter of how much and keeping that down to a drip drop here and there. But not a huge, mechanical wonder here. Let's get it apart though, and we'll go through the different pieces and we'll replace on them, get them cleaned up, and then we're ready to put this Dynaflow back in the Special and move on to shinier things. Oh, where are all my sockets? I probably should have prepared before I started shooting video. And that's the wrong one. And this is too small. Here we go. 9/16ers. And drop it in the drain pan. I do expect to lose a little more fluid out of here. Let me pull these pieces off. There it is. Hey, we actually caught some fluid for once, and it didn't just soak into my bench. This bolt was out. I think that had a bracketry or something under the car, but that's okay. First piece to come off is just this cover piece, and it will come out over this flange. You can do this in the car. It's a complete pain in the you-know-what, but it is, possible. And here's our inner piece of the torque ball, and then you have a bushing in there for the output. I'm going to set him there, and then we've got an O-ring here that's going to get replaced on. And we've got another chunk of metal there. Now we've got fluid on the bench. It would not be right to do this without dumping a bunch of transmission fluid onto the bench. Here's our U-joint. Life is pretty happy there. And then we've got another O-ring here. This is a lip ring. I think it might be a square one. It might be a lip one. Oh, looks like it might just be a square shaped O-ring. We'll replace on that one too. The outer one, no lip on that one either. figure it out. We got all the pieces in the stuff in a kit over on the other bench. But that's breaking it down, guys and ladymen. And, you know, we're going to put new pieces in here and seal it up the best we can. When you know, we've got a bit of an oddball here. I did not know this. Between 56 to 58, apparently some of the torque flights used a rear retainer that had the vulcanized rubber for the torque ball vulcanized, glued, heated and glued and vulcanized onto the retainer, not onto the actual housing of the torque ball, not in the retainer like you see all the kits. Now, I'd never run across this. Now, the instructions for this kit says that you can cut this off and sand this and get this shiny smooth and use the new style repair with this style of retainer housing. So we're going to try that. At the very worst, there's a place on the interwebs and that we might be able to send this in as a core, and they'll replace it with one that has been re-vulcanized the factory way, and then we just use the factory retainer. But I would much rather go this route because this is much more serviceable in the future should a leak reoccur. So we're going to get, you know, a little creative. I guess utility knife is going to come out first, and we'll see how much of this rubber. Some of it is already separating on its own. Yeah, it's already torn in spots and everything else. But here, we just got a little pocket screwdriver here, and we're already poking right through. It's real, you know, the old rubber, it doesn't just like to be as good as new. But I think we just take this outer lip off. Of course, there's no pictures, and I kind of require pictures most of the time. But yeah, that was not in good shape. It makes sense to me that this should work. Yeah, the top of this is in a lot better condition. Oh, this has gone much better, I think. Oh, I'll get most of it off. Then my plan is to go over to the wire wheel and see if we can't just wire wheel most of this off. This is the top here, so that's why our rubber's in better shape, because it hasn't been living in the fluids as much. Down here it's really deteriorated, and up at the top not so bad. We're going to run this through the wire wheel over here and see what we can get with that. Little update, here's where we're at. We have the old torque ball rubber. We wire wheeled with the grinder wheel, and it came right off. Then we did a little 400 grit and a little 1000 grit around there, and got down to a very smooth surface. It's not a mirror finish, but I don't think it needs to be. It just needs to lose all the big burnishes and any grooves and that kind of stuff. So we're happy there. We have our inner flange installed, and there's an O-ring behind there. The one thing, our torque ball kit came with an O-ring that's about 3/4 of an inch too small, and there's just no way it's going to stretch into that groove and stay. We were able to use one of the extra lip seals that was in the Dynaflow kit, and it stretched a little bit, and we got it behind the first retainer, so it should seal really well. And then we're on to our new, there we go, outer retainer with the new vulcanized rubber in it. And we have to now get to the point where when this all sucks up together, it has the right amount of tension, because it'll move a little bit with the suspensions of the car. So what it has is, it has, you know, a couple of regular looking gaskets, and then it has some assorted paper gaskets that are of different thicknesses, and we have to shim this out now. So we started with a gray kind of standard thickness gasket, and then we picked a light blue, and that's going to be our first attempt. So we're going to bolt that up with everything in place, and then they say to stick like a broom handle or something in here, and there should be quite a bit of resistance. I think the spec is like 20 to 35 pounds, so if you feel like you're lifting a 20 to 35 pound weight, it should be about right. We're going to mess with that a little bit and see if we can get that feeling good, and then you take everything back off and we'll put some silicone in between these gaskets. It'll mess that setting up just a tad, but not too much, and then we'll go back together for a final time. That's how that works. And then let's just get a ratchet. Not that size. Not that size. We're going a 9 or 16er. Hello, are you here? Where'd you go? I can find every socket except the one that I'd really like to have. Here's a short one. We'll use that. If I could, there we go. We're gonna give her a little test here. Go. Okay, that's probably not there yet. Let's go ahead and tighten it down a little bit though. It might be pretty good once we're snugged up all the way. I don't think that's 20. I think that's about 10. Let's put 2 more bolts in. We'll have to go with 5 out of 6 for testing purposes. Okay. Now what do we got? Yep. Ooh. That's different. Is it 20 though? Man, I don't know, you guys. I think it's pretty close, but okay, the science says we've got a conclusion. In our waste oil jug, we've got about 4 gallons of various waste oils. And a gallon of oil is what, about 8 pounds? So about 30 pounds. Lift that a couple times. Then we come over here and we compare. Oh, it's like, it feels like the same. Like if I was gonna do that, and then it's gonna come over here and lift up the oil again, it would take the same effort. we're gonna leave it. We're gonna go light blue and gray gasket. And now we gotta take things apart, put some sealant in between those gaskets, and put it back together one last time. We're putting just the thinnest layer of the silicone on here to help seal this thing up, because again, we want this Dynaflow to be as leak free as we can get it. That's our job here. So there we go. Not a ton, because we don't want to mess up our end shim and we don't want it gooping out all over. We don't need that much, but we've got 2 gaskets in there. So, and then just in case you're wondering, it's this part. This back part of the actual torque ball can go like this, or it can go like that. The easiest way to remember is in here, you see where the oil, there's a slot. That's where the oil that gets pumped out to that back bushing has to drain back down into the transmission. So put that on the bottom. Drop that in there. And then this goes on here. Come on. Come on. Well, you were happy before. Why aren't you happy now? Oh, come on. Are you happy? No? How about now? There you go. Now, because we've added some RTV, we're going to snug these down according to the RTV instructions. You guys remember back in the day when you used to be able to put silicone on stuff and you freaking tighten it up and you put oil in it or whatever and you let her rip? Well, now they have that whole tighten it down so it squishes out, and then wait an hour, and then torque it, tighten it to spec, and then wait 24 hours before you put it in service. Golly. Alright, so we're snugged down. We will let it sit here for a little bit before we do our final torque, but for all intents and the purposes, that is the torque ball. And while I'm glad I made a separate video, it was not near as problematic as I thought it might be. The one hiccup we had was our torque ball itself had the vulcanizing on it. We cleaned that off, and it looks like it's going to work just fine with this new style of retainer with the vulcanized rubber attached to it. So we've got our seal is right here, and then on our output there will be a gasket here between the torque ball and the, what was that noise, and the torque tube that goes to the rear end. And then also there's going to be a seal that will seal between the torque tube and the actual splined output on the transmission. So life is pretty good. We'll let this sit up and we'll finish it up.